Hey guys, welcome back to the anime Iceberg. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I recommend going back and doing that now. Otherwise, you're not going to know where we are and what we've covered already. We already know the basics of the Iceberg, but yeah, we're just going to hop right into it, keep the intro short and sweet, and we're going to dive right into Tier 3. Starting off Tier 3 is Violet Evergarden. This is one of Kyoto Animation's finest works in terms of animation and scenery alone. This girl goes by the name of Violet Evergarden, is left without her limbs, leaving to mechanical replacements for her arms. Now that her purpose in life has been sort of taken away, in a sense of the war ending, she now has to search for the meaning of the words that somebody dear to her spoke to her, but she didn't quite understand. Next on the list is Kuro Shitsuji, aka Black Butler. Now, this show was extremely popular in the early 2010s, and it follows Seal Phantom Hive, who trades his soul for a demon named Sebastian Michaelis to serve as his butler in a deal where Sebastian will do whatever Seal requests in exchange for one day consuming Seal's soul. Chunibyo focuses on Yuta, who is trying to escape the cringy personality he created for himself while he was in middle school. Now that Yuta has a fresh start in high school, however, there's somebody from his past who isn't going to make that very easy for him. Enter Rika Takenashi. Now, this girl has yet to let go of her Chunibyo syndrome, making it extremely difficult for Yuta to escape that part of his life. Durarara is the anime adaptation of a very popular manga. As for the story itself, taking place in the Ikekabura district in Japan, in this district in Tokyo, thieves, gangs, and thugs seem to run rampant. However, none are more iconic than the Black Rider, which is a motorcyclist without a head. As the main character Mikado Ryugamine settles into his new life in Tokyo, he and the rest of the cast are soon swept up in the dangerous gang activity taking place within the city. Don't you just hate it when you're about to confess to a girl and just as you go to open your mouth, the entire human race turns to stone? If you're the main character of Dr. Stone, then that's exactly what happens to you. Now that Taiji Oki and his friend have awakened from their stone imprisonment, they embark on a journey to reverse the petrification process. Following the plot of Date Alive, 30 years in the past there were these spatial quakes that took the lives of 150 million people. This causes the surviving population to take cover in bases or bunkers almost on a daily occurrence. After being trapped outside in one of these spatial quakes, the main character Shido Itsuka discovers a source of these space quakes are actually beings called spirits. Now, aside from a very violent way of dealing with them, it's revealed that the only other option to stop these beings from taking the lives of the innocent and causing more damage is for Shido himself to make these spirits fall in love with him. Only then can Shido kiss them and seal away their powers, saving the lives of the innocent while also sparing theirs. Haruhi Fujioka comes from a poor family and attends a rather ritzy, upper-class high school on a scholarship. One day she accidentally breaks a vase belonging to the host club, a group of pretty boys that the girls of the school seem to fawn and simp over. They go so far as to pay this host club to show up to their events and to dress up simply to entertain them. In exchange for breaking their vase, Haruhi has to work for them in order to pay it back, joining the host club as a servant. However, thanks to her androgynous appearance, she soon becomes rather popular with the girls herself, posing as one of the members. Jumping to the other end of the spectrum is Higurashi. Higurashi might just be the most popular, as well as the most iconic horror anime on this list. Hinamezawa is a relatively small village in the remote areas of Japan. Now, it seems like a normal show at first, following a group of friends just before the summer festival begins. With that plot alone, it seems like a rather ordinary summertime tale. Except that's rather far from the truth. In a never-ending loop of suffering and death, Keiichi Maebara and his friends and loved ones find themselves in a never-ending loop of mass hysteria, illness, and murder. This show on its own, I feel, is rather popular already, and it recently just got a reboot last year, so I feel like it could have been bumped up 1 or 2 levels. I suppose it's not quite at that popularity where the general public would know about it, unless it's a sort of like a shock value scene that you show your friends just to get a rise out of them. The Disastrous Life of Psyche K is an anime consisting of short 5-minute episodes following a rather powerful Esper who's trying to keep the fact that he's an Esper rather secret. However, as he tries to live this ordinary life, he finds that his psychic powers are sort of a magnet for strange occurrences to happen. So, Berserk 1993, it's the first interesting one on this iceberg, mostly because there were two possibilities that I feel could have been the real answer. And the first one is obviously Berserk, the anime adaptation of the extremely popular manga. An adaptation of Kentaro Miura's famous manga, Berserk follows the life of a mercenary simply known as Guts. Without much of a set path, Guts lives his life on the battlefield. He carves his way through opponents as he finds his reason for being. This soon earns him the attention of a powerful group of mercenaries who ask him to join their ranks. His immense power quickly has him rising in status, but he soon finds himself as the cog in a much larger machine. This seems like the obvious answer, but it doesn't seem like it fits. On the iceberg, it's listed as Berserk 1993, and the anime was released in 1998. And it can't be referencing the manga, as the manga itself started in 1989. But while I was searching for an answer, I found something interesting that it could be referring to. Godzilla vs. Berserk is the concept of a 1993 film that was set to be part of the Godzilla series. This would follow a meteorite that would hit the planet, and aboard is a being that takes the shape of the most powerful thing on Earth. In this case would be Godzilla. A short 14-page script was submitted to Toho, and it would eventually be the basis of what soon became Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which was the film that was actually released in 1993. The movie itself was scrapped, never being made, becoming more of a lost media that had never had an actual source outside of its script. Now, those were the only two real answers I found, other than like a whiskey called Berserk 1993, but I highly doubt that this is what the iceberg is referencing. So if you know, please tell me in the comments below, because I couldn't find anything, but maybe I'm just missing something. Also, on a brief side note, Kentaro Miura did pass away in May of this year. His works were super influential. They were dark yet beautiful, and you could tell he poured his heart into each frame and panel that he drew. And it's sad to know that his story of Berserk will never conclude, as he did take long hiatuses between chapters. His influence could be seen anywhere from Attack on Titan to Dark Souls, and I think it's safe to say that it will be missed. High School of the Dead is the most popular zombie apocalypse anime for very large, bouncy reasons. High School of the Dead follows a group of students as they witness the start of the zombie apocalypse from their high school. Takashi Kamuro is stuck in a love triangle with his childhood friends Hisashi and Rei. However, he is forced to put his best friend Hisashi down after he is bitten by zombies. After meeting up with some other students and the school nurse, they go on the road to try and find a way to survive the outbreak. This is a rather sad tale of the process behind the manga. The manga halted in 2008 after the author of the manga, Daisuke Sato, fell ill. After he would fall ill, only 2 more chapters would be released. After his death in 2017, Shoji Sato, who was the illustrator for High School of the Dead, decided to discontinue the story altogether, and instead focus on one of Daisuke Sato's other projects, Triage X. Sword Art Online Season 2, Log Horizon is about 30,000 players who are suddenly unable to log out of their accounts after an update forbids them from doing so. Understandably, many of the players are distressed, but the main character isn't quite as such. Maid boy Oshiro just takes it in stride and goes on to explore his new reality. Next on the list is The Devil is a Part-Timer. Now, after the demon lord Satan is defeated by mankind and their hero, he is forced to retreat through a portal, of which the opposite side he doesn't know. He steps into this unknown reality, which turns out to be modern-day Tokyo. Now that he's an ordinary person, he has to adapt to life in modern-day Tokyo, resulting in him getting a part-time job at the local fast food joint McRonald's. It's here that he believes if he obtains a full-time job, that he will once again be able to revive his dream of total domination. Nisekoi False Love. When Raku Ichijo was just a kid, he made a promise to a girl that he can't remember. Now older and in high school, he's the son of a Yakuza family, hoping to just live an ordinary life. He wants nothing to do with the life of crime. However, that all changes when he's forced to take on a fake relationship with Chitoge, who's the daughter of a rival gang, in order to help make peace between the two. The two almost immediately despise each other, not just because of their own reasons for not liking one another, but because his fake relationship with Chitoge is getting in the way of his real crush, which is the rather normal Onodera. Living in a town where nothing extraordinary ever happens, Tomoya Okazaki is the main character of Clannad. He's seen as a delinquent who believes he will never amount to anything. That is until one day he runs into Nagisa Furukawa. Nagisa is a girl who was held back a year because she was battling an illness and missed substantial time during her school year. Her dream is to revive the school's drama club, which is something that Tomoya uncharacteristically ends up helping with. This leads him to meet a handful of other girls, all of which who are willing to assist, but all have their own problems and trauma that they've been dealing with. When Tomoya starts to help all of them out, he soon realizes that maybe life isn't as bad as he thought it was. Now, Clannad is split into 2 seasons. It's Clannad and Clannad After Story. And while Clannad is sort of slow and has been described as kind of boring, and I can honestly see that, Clannad After Story might just be one of the most heart-wrenching seasons of any show I've ever watched. And from infamously sad to happy and cheerful, when Kobayashi takes a trip into the mountain drunk, she soon runs into a dragon that's mortally wounded. In her drunken stupor, she pulls a sword from the dragon's hide, saving its life. The dragon, now thankful for saving her life, transforms into a human, and both she and Kobayashi get drunk on a mountainside. Banished from her old world and with nowhere to go in this human world, Kobayashi offers Toru a place to stay, becoming Kobayashi's dragon maid. This show is like really comfy and really heartwarming, even with like the fan service in it and everything. And a lot of hanky-panky has been drawn with them, including Kana. You have like these, and you draw why? Kakegurui follows HYOUKA Private Academy, which is a school for the children of the very elite. Many of the students at the school belong to the world's richest families. While the school focuses on preparing these kids for life, the setting changes after school hours, when the school itself transforms into a bit of an underground gambling ring. Yumeko Jabami doesn't much care for winning, and is instead just a gambling addict. In another case of somebody just wanting to live an ordinary life, Hyun is just that. He grew up like the rest of us, believing in fairies and Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and all that. But as he got older, he soon realized that those were just mere fairy tales. That is until his first day of high school, where he meets the eccentric Haruhi Suzumiya, who boldly proclaims that she has no interest in talking to anybody who isn't an alien, time traveler, or an Esper. Sarcastically, Hyun tells Haruhi that she should simply make a club and find all of these supernatural beings for herself. Taking his words to heart, she forces him to join and form the SOS Brigade. Among the members that join are Mikuru Asahina, a time traveler, Itsuki Koizumi, an Esper, and Yuki Nagato, an alien. It's unknown to Haruhi that these characters are anything but ordinary humans, and it's Kyun's job to make sure she never finds out and is never bored. Haruhi Suzumiya is a perfect parody of high school anime, where a girl simply wants something to happen, and that happens to help keep her from being bored. Now, if you look behind what is being shown to you on screen, I truly believe that this show is one of the best anime that have ever been made. And the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, the movie adaptation, is one of the best that any show could have received. After the apocalypse virus wipes through Japan, turning anybody who contracts it into little more than fragile crystal, a heavily militarized group called GHQ seeks to restore order to the now cursed nation. But as Shuoma is soon wrapped up in the plans of a terrorist group known as Funeral Parlor, he mistakenly obtains the ability to draw forth people's voids, or the physical embodiment of their souls. His fight back with Funeral Parlor against tyrannical rule soon draws in his friend and loved ones. Shu is forced to sacrifice more and more to eventually free his country. I watched this show a couple years ago, and I was only able to watch it once, and it was so good, but this show broke me. Now, video game adaptations is the first broad entry on the list. It could mean one of two things. It could mean anime that were adapted from existing video games, or it could be video games adapted from already existing anime. There were quite a number of anime that existed as video games or visual novels rather than being taken as the source material from manga or light novels. Some examples include Steins Gate, Corpse Party, which we'll touch on a little later, but possibly the most famous example being Pokemon. Now, on the other side, there are a few anime who were so popular that they were able to obtain a video game adaptation, further expanding on its popularity. Many of the video game adaptations take place as arena fighters, such as Naruto, Dragon Ball, or My Hero. There could be the adaptations such as Little Witch Academia video game, which is more outside of the show's own canon, or you could alternatively have the very cursed Toradora video game, which is a gem that the playthroughs exist on YouTube, and like I said, they're very cursed. So, I guess watch at your own risk. Now for the first isekai on tier 3, Shield Hero follows the 4 cardinal heroes as they are drawn from Japan, while 3 of the heroes are armed with formidable weapons such as swords or bows. Now Fumi is armed with simply a shield to help fight against the waves of catastrophe. After being shunned from the kingdom for a crime he did not commit, he sets off on his own with a former slave named Raftalia to one day save the kingdom from devastation. Noragami follows the minor deity Yato. Yato seeks to amass a great amount of followers like some of the greater gods. However, he ends up scraping the bottom of a barrel, doing odd jobs for a measly 5 yen apiece. Stuck without a weapon at his side, Yato stumbles upon a stroke of luck after running into Hiyori, who saves him from almost being hit by a truck. She instead takes the hit for him, causing her soul to be jarred loose from her body at random times, and can suddenly just fall loose whenever she's walking. In exchange for returning her body and soul back to normal, Hiyori helps Yato to find a new partner, as well as follows his journey to become a major deity. Next on the list is Monster Musume. Now, after humanity discovers that human-monster hybrids were living on islands off the coasts of Japan, they are slowly integrated into society. Japan being the first country to adapt these beings into their general population, a few laws are set up to help protect them, including one protecting from any sort of interspecies hanky-panky going on. Kimihito Kurisu is selected as the host for one of these monster girls. He's selected at random to host a Lamia in his home named Mia, who quickly starts showing her affection for him. However, as more of these monster girls show up in Kurisu's life, he is tasked by his agent for an experimental loophole in the law, where he must choose one of the girls that he meets and marry them, being the first human-monster relationship. In the world of Bunny Girl Senpai, there exists a rumor of puberty syndrome. Now, this is an urban legend that tells of strange occurrences that happen to those of age. This is thought to just be a rumor. However, Sakuta Asuzagawa finds out that that might not be the case. He soon finds out that a select group of students in his high school suffer from this supposed urban legend, such as a girl whose fame in her early life leads to her being seen as invisible to other classmates, or a girl who experiences physical pain after being cyberbullied. Inuyasha, I feel, should have been a bit higher on the list, considering how extremely popular I remember it being. Maybe it wasn't as popular with the general population, but definitely popular to people who actually watch anime. Inuyasha itself follows a story of Kogame, who is dragged into a well by a demon at her parents' shrine, and finds herself awake 500 years in the past. Now, in the past, the demon that dragged her in wants the Shikon jewel that was born inside of her. However, as the gem breaks, she seeks the help of Inuyasha to help her recover the shards and one day return home. In HYOUKA, Hotaru Ureki is somebody who firmly believes that there is no need to expel more energy in a situation than is required. He signs up for a club thinking that he can continue this carefree sort of lifestyle, but soon finds out that isn't the case. Led by Chitanda, the members of the club drag him into an investigation that has spanned nearly half a century. Akira is a cult classic 1988 film depicting a post-World War III Tokyo. Now, in the year 1988, Tokyo is almost entirely decimated by a boy with psychic powers. Fast forward to the year 2019, Neo-Tokyo is littered with gangs and violence. Sotaru Kaneda is the head of the Capsules, a motorcycle gang who frequently battle it out with the clowns. After finding himself in contact with a being who escaped from government captivity, Shotaro himself is exposed to a set of powers that he struggles to contain. The rest of the movie follows his escape from the government while trying to prevent destroying Tokyo yet again. A little side note that this movie was released in 1988, and it was able to correctly predict that the Tokyo Olympics were going to be held in Tokyo when that announcement wouldn't be made until 2013. In the movie, it also depicts a push to cancel the Olympics, similar to a situation that's happening as of me recording and editing this video. There's also some other stuff, like riots and political unrest, that I'm not going to touch on because that's a little too political, so we're just going to keep moving. Tensei Shitara Slime, or The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, is another isekai to add to the list. After Satori Mukami is stabbed, he wakes up to find that he's in a land that he doesn't recognize. And after waking up, he also realizes he's little more than a pile of slime. After assisting a monster and fleeing, he is blessed with divine powers, taking on new adventures in this world he explores in his new slime-shifting body. Quintessential quintuplets. After getting into an argument with a girl at lunch, The extremely smart yet socially unfortunate Futaru Usagi is hired to tutor the daughters of an extremely wealthy family. However, he finds that he is not only responsible for Itsuka Nakano, who is the girl he got in a fight with at lunch, but her 4 identical sisters. This is another show that I know little to nothing about, but the entire fandom just seems to cannibalize itself over the waifu wars thing. The Tuaru series consists of several shows, namely a certain scientific index, a certain scientific railgun, a certain scientific accelerator, and a certain scientific dark matter. All of these shows tie into one another with its characters and story. The original show follows a nun by the name of Index, who is bestowed with over 100,000 books of forbidden magical knowledge. It all takes place in a city that is decades ahead of technology than the rest of the world, and because of this forbidden knowledge, she is now being hunted. Toma Kamijo has the ability to negate other people's powers, leading to him protecting Index from those who wish to hurt her. Scientific Railgun follows Mikoto Misaka, who's known as Railgun for her ability to manipulate electricity. Scientific Accelerator follows a character simply known as Accelerator, and his story after he is severely injured by a brain injury. The Dark Matter manga follows Misaki Shokuho, who is the best character. I don't actually know, I haven't watched any of it. She just looks the coolest. Shizuku Mizutani is a girl who cares about little more than grades and has no interest in her classmates or their personal lives. That is until she runs into Haru Yoshida, who's the class delinquent who is known for cutting class after he got into a fight earlier that year. In My Little Monster, after Haru confesses to Shizuku, the story then follows her social ineptness, as well as the two growing closer and learning more about interacting with other people. Hal's Moving Castle. Living inside a giant mechanical castle is the powerful wizard Hal, who has a reputation both for his strength with magic and for being a bit of a ladies' man. When a small town girl by the name of Sophie is saved by the wizard, she is cursed by the Witch of the Waste, who turns her into an old woman. She is then accompanied by Hal as they journey to turn her back to normal. This is a critically acclaimed Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki film. It's one of his more recents, coming out in 2004. Fruits Baskets follows Toru Honda, who's struggling to get by after the passing of her mother. She goes to live with her grandfather, but after being inconvenienced by the renovations being done, decides to live in the woods in a tent. However, after a landslide destroys her tent, she is offered housing by the 2 popular boys in school. However, after spending a small amount of time with the Soma boys, she finds out that there's a bit of a secret to the family, and it's that they are cursed to where they are triggers that will turn them from humans into animals of the Chinese zodiac. It is revealed that the entire family suffers this same curse. This show is a bit of a classic, being released in the early thousands, and it just recently got a remake, which I believe is finishing in just a few weeks as of the recording of this video. The first season of Agretsuko is over 100 episodes, but each episode is about a minute in runtime. The show follows anthropomorphic animals in an office life. The main red panda Retsuko is constantly being bullied and harassed, leading to her lashing out and venting, but usually within the safe space of her own mind. Now, after the success of the first season, Agretsuko ended up getting more seasons with less episodes, about 10 each, but ended up having about 15 minutes in runtime instead of 1 minute. Blundes follows Maika Sakura Nomiya. She's a fairly ordinary 16-year-old girl who's trying to find a part-time job so that she can save up to study abroad after she finishes high school. However, she fails time and time again to find retail work, mostly as a result of her smile being little more than a horrifying grimace. She eventually finds her way to Cafe Stile, a cosplay coffee shop where each of the waitresses have a personality trait that they portray. Maika is hired to play the sadist, using that creepy smile of hers to look down on masochistic customers, which in turn helps her rise through the ranks of popularity at the cafe. Owari no Seraph follows the world after a mysterious virus wipes out anybody over the age of 13. Vampires emerge from the shadows, striking a deal with humans to keep them safe in exchange for a regular supply of their blood. While in an orphanage, the inhabitants grow tired of the rule of the vampires and attempt to make an escape, resulting in a rather bloody massacre. The survivor of the massacre, Ichiro, is taken in by Moon Demon Company, who is a group bent on destroying vampires. Several years down the line, now that Ichiro has matured, he seeks out revenge on those who took the lives of those he considered family. Magic was once thought to be something fictional, something you would only find in a fairy tale. However, in the Irregular at Magic High School, it's a skill where schools can specialize in teaching students, training their knowledge to become skilled magicians. One school in particular divides the students who take the entrance exam into two categories: those who are seen as gifted and those who are seen as magically inept. The show follows two students, Tatsuya and Miyuki, both of which are placed into different classes, with Tatsuya being seen as basically magically useless. I'm sure this show was great and all, because I remember it at the time of airing being sort of popular, but I think there's hints that the sister wants to do the hanky-panky with her brother, and if that's true, I have to ask why. HYOUKA Maid Sama was one of the most popular shoujo animes, at the very least at the time of it airing. Maid Sama follows the first female class president at a school that was formerly co-ed, similar to the high school DxD setting, except where instead of it being a school that was formerly all girls, this is a school that was formerly all boys. Misaki Aizawa is seen as a rather strict president, not afraid to use her knowledge in martial arts to help discipline those students who act up. However, this personality is flipped when it's revealed that she has a part-time job at a maid cafe, and her reputation is put on the line when one of the most popular boys in school catches her in costume on the job. Battle Royale is a Japanese movie from the year 2000 that is a B-Toon follows Ryota Sakamoto, who's a shut-in whose only notable achievement is being one of the best players in his favorite video game, B-Toon. One day he wakes up to find that he's been placed on an island in a similar situation to the game that he loves so much. The only drawback is that the only way he is able to escape the island is by taking the lives of 7 other participants. Oraimo, or My Little Sister Can't Be This Cute, follows the Kosuka siblings as they live through a bit of an abnormal life. Kirino is a prim and proper, ideal student who just so happens to be a model in her spare time. It seems that her and her friend Ayase are disgusted and appalled by just about anything that has the slightest relevance to nerd culture. That is, until her older brother Kyosuke stumbles upon her collection of dirty anime games. As she forces him to stay quiet about this secret, he is slowly introduced to otaku subculture. As opposed to the Magic High School, where there's brother-sister hanky-panky, this one's full-on. Back to the shows I like talking about, Nichijou follows the daily lives of 3 high school girls, Mio, Mai, and Yuka. It also follows the life of a young genius, Hayase Shinonome, and her robot caretaker, Nano, as well as their talking cat, Sakamoto. As you can imagine, their lives are anything but ordinary in contrast to the title. There's no real overarching story to Nichijou, it's just wacky, non-stop comedy, and it's one of those shows like K-On! That you'll watch if you don't want to be hurt, or you're coming off a show that really did hurt you, and it's just nice to sit down and enjoy. In Welcome to the NHK, Tatsuhiro Sato has been out of college and out of work for about 4 years. In that time, he's been living as a hikikomori who has developed a bunch of strange and outlandish conspiracy theories, such as a secret organization known as the Nihon Hikikomori Kyokai, or the NHK, influencing him to take on this sort of shut-in, neat lifestyle and spread it across Japan. He eventually meets somebody named Misaki Nakahara, a girl who shows him that there is a possibility that he can escape his shut-in ways. This is a show that has nothing but praise behind it. It has a bit of a following, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I think it might be one of the first popular shut-in characters that may have sort of pushed forward the movement of a lot of characters who come after that follow that sort of lifestyle. I don't know, don't quote me on it, it's just what I figured, as it's a very influential piece of media. Hellsing is a group of people that deals with unusual requests, namely supernatural incidents that are threatening the lives of the innocent. The most popular member of this group is known as Alucard, a vampire who deals with threats with his signature handgun. When police officer Ceres Victoria is mortally wounded, Alucard gives her the option to either let her pass as a human or to let her come back as a vampire. She accepts his offer and lives on protecting the innocent as a member of the undead. In Darker Than Black, spatial anomalies appear in South Africa and Tokyo, allowing those with special abilities known as contractors to walk through the gates. The United States is toppled and stripped of its status as a superpower by an underground group called the Syndicate. The story follows a contractor by the name of Hay. Hay works as an assassin for the Syndicate to carry out any needs that need to be done. However, there is soon learned of a plot of the Syndicate to erase contractors from existence, causing a resistance within the organization. The first sports anime of this year comes in the form of Kuroko no Basket. The story follows Tetsuya Kuroko, who has a special ability to seemingly move across the basketball court without anybody able to keep up or even notice him. However, his ability is limited as he is unable to shoot and score points. Tetsuya takes on the position of a sixth man who simply gets the balls to his teammates to give them the prime position to score. The schools that Tetsuya's team faces seem to all have like these final boss abilities, which make it kind of weird to me. There's been some comparisons drawn with this and HYOUKA, mostly because they're both popular sports animes, where HYOUKA is just ordinary volleyball. This is like they have superpowers that are kind of more ridiculous than the last. Sankyu no Terror, or Terran Resonance, follows the aftermath of a terrorist attack on a Japanese nuclear facility. While authorities are left with little to nothing to go off of, videos start surfacing online that are basically taunting police and authorities. Two boys identify themselves as Sphinx, carve out their destructive paths, all while Lisa Mishima, a girl who's relentlessly bullied by her classmates, finds herself oddly at home with these two terrorists. Bungo Stray Dogs. Now this is a show I had just finished watching. After Atsushi Nakajima is kicked out of his orphanage for being deemed a nuisance and a waste of resources, he is left homeless and hungry, left to fend for himself. However, as he is next to a river, he saves a man from drowning, who reveals himself to be Osamu Dazai, a man who is obsessed with the idea of committing suicide. However, as it turns out, Osamu is investigating the mysterious sightings of something called the were-tiger, a supernatural beast, the same beast that has been causing Atsushi all of his recent problems. It's soon revealed in the first episode that the tiger is not following Atsushi, but it is Atsushi who is unable to control his powers. He has the ability to transform into the were-tiger. He is taken to the Armed Detective Agency, where he joins the ranks fighting against those with abilities who would use them for illegal gain. Mononoke Hime, or more popularly in the West, Princess Mononoke, is a Studio Ghibli film. After defeating a demon that attacks his village, Ashitaka is cursed with a power that slowly eats away at him. As he searches for a cure, he runs into Lady Eboshi and Princess San. The two parties clash over the mistreatment of nature, as well as the sacred spirits who are being affected by the destruction of their land. Ashitaka wants both sides to reach a peaceful agreement, trying to help them do so as he deals with the power slowly eating away at him. Taking place in a fantasy setting, Goblin Slayer is a very dark and gritty anime showing the brutality of goblins. While in most stories or video games, goblins are seen as trash mobs or training mobs, that's not quite the case in Goblin Slayer. While this starts with an inexperienced group of adventurers trying to take on a goblin's nest, they are soon dealt an awful fate. As one of the newest members of the party, the priestess almost accepts her fate. She is saved by Goblin Slayer himself, who not only saves her life, but wipes out the entire goblin nest. The story follows Goblin Slayer, who forms a group with those who share the same value as him, which is to wipe goblins out of existence. I'm not going to lie, do not watch this show if you can't handle very heavy subjects. I watched part of the first episode, and when I got to that scene, I quit, and I haven't gone back. So just know your limits, and that's all I'll say about it. I'm beginning to think that the person who made this Iceberg had a really weird sense of humor to go from really dark, a really weird anime, and then just go to like super lighthearted. Lucky Star is the total opposite of Goblin Slayer. It is extremely lighthearted and goofy. Similar to Nichijou, it doesn't have an overarching plot and just sort of makes jokes about whatever it can. There are a ton of anime references in this show, such as Initial D, but there are none more prevalent than Haruhi Suzumiya. It's to the point where some characters, like Nagato, appear as characters in the series, and Haruhi shows up in a commercial in the show. The ending of episode 14 is actually actor Minoru Shiraishi performing the Hare Hare Yukai song, posing in karate stances on the beach. Next on the list is Magi. After being sheltered for most of his life, a young mage by the name of Aladdin is finally set to explore the world. Along the way, he endeavors to clear dungeons and fight any enemy who gets in his way. Although he is pretty naive and has little concept of how the world works. Again, this is a show I really don't know how to summarize without spoiling some of the episodes, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. The pet girl of Sakura So. Sarada Kanda moves into a satellite dorm on his high school campus, where they send the eccentric and oddball students to live. But he finds himself less inclined to leave after finding himself connecting with the childish and naive, aspiring mangaka Mashiro Shina. HYOUKA no Kanata, or Beyond the Boundary, follows the only remaining member of a demon-hunting warrior clan, Mirai Kuriyama. After running into Akihito Kanbara, a human who has his blood mixed with that of Yomu, she attempts to take his life, using the ability that her former clan was known for, which was creating weapons out of her blood. Though his half-Yomu blood makes it impossible for Akihito to be defeated, the two become friends. And together with Akihito's friends in the literary club, the group take on ever-strengthening Yomu who make themselves present. Divers are people in the story of Made in Abyss who trek into the depths of a giant chasm known as the Abyss. Diving into the Abyss results in greater discoveries and greater fame, however it's not without risk, as the depths contain things unknown to the surface. Riko wishes to dive deep like her mother did before her, searching for whatever secrets the darkest areas of the chasm hold. She discovers a strange robot who shares a resemblance to that of an ordinary boy, but he has no recollection of anything before being discovered. Riko is confident that he has technology that belongs to the depths of the chasm, resulting in the two diving deep into the darkness, only for the true terrors to be revealed. You came for a cute naked wolf girl, and you left with a degree in economics. Spice and Wolf follows Lawrence, an aspiring shopkeep who makes his money currently to fuel his dream by being a trader. One day he stumbles upon Holo, a wolf goddess who, thanks to villagers becoming increasingly more dependent on their own instead of the blessings of a goddess, has been reduced to little more than folklore. Why is it on the list? Why is this on the list? Why is it not higher? Why did you put it here? So if you're this far down, you know exactly what this is. It's the 18 plus section of the medium. Be it original content or like a parody of something that already exists. It can be either just drawn or animated, but it covers just about anything that exists. I also really hate to admit this, because I was really confused on this entry. Because of like how many shows and titles are on this level, some of them are kind of packed in together, and because of that, I thought it was blank Gundam. I spent about like an hour trying to find blank Gundam, only to realize that they were two separate entries, and I was just stumbling upon like mountains of this stuff trying to sift through it to see if there was a season called blank Gundam. The final entry on the list is Gundam. Gundam is its own franchise spawned from giant robots or mechas. The first iteration of Gundam came back in 1979 with Mobile Suit Gundam. At the time of writing this video, Gundam has 50 TV shows, movies, and OVAs. This is in addition to manga, books, models, and figures. The latest Gundam series that is not considered an ONA, or original net animation, is Gundam Mobile Fighters. The latest movie, Mobile Suit Gundam Narrative, was also released back in 2018. The Gundam franchise has been said to bring in about 80.2 billion yen a year as of 2014, which converted to USD is $730 million a year. There's an entire Wikipedia article titled The Cultural Influences of Gundam, and it ranges from everything from Mitsubishi concept cars to the Japanese self-defense force using it for code words. And it's hard to oversell what Gundam means, not just to Japan, but the world as a whole. It might very well be impossible to cover every single thing that has been influenced by Gundam. And we are done with Tier 3. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this, just be sure to like and subscribe down below. I did want to thank you guys because the Saki Sonobashi video I did just reached 1,000 views, and I know like in the grand scheme of YouTube that's not a big deal, but I think it's so cool that something that I made was seen by 1,000 people, over 1,000 people at this point. And like the last Iceberg video is so far performing the best out of any video I've put out, and I can't thank you guys enough. Until then guys though, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.